Good morning and happy Thursday. So this has become a tradition. The drink of coffee early in the morning. So there's a beautiful spring rain going on all night, and it's a little bit warmer. It's going to be 70 degrees today. It's not going to be freezing. And it feels wonderful. It's a glorious day. You know what? Let's do a review. My internet having troubles. Second thing is, whoever you surround yourself with is who you become. The 5 people that you spend the most time with, that is who you become in life. But you can spend time with people in a host of ways. You don't have to be in their physical presence. You can watch videos, you can read books, you can even set yourself up with a counsel. This is something that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich. You can set yourself up with a counsel where you have meetings with people who've even passed. But if you sit there and imagine that you're with that person and give the information that they would say to you, as you study that person, you'll be able to get their wisdom even if they're not physically there. So number 1, state management. Number 2, the 5 people that you spend the most time with is who you become. How do you manage your state? Well, we said there's 3 things that go into what your state looks like at all times. Your physiology, your physical body, and that the way we manage our state with our physical body is we know the difference between somebody who's depressed, they're down, they're slouched down, their breathing is shallow, whereas somebody who's energetic and enthusiastic, they're up, their breathing is up, their eyes are up, their body is physically up. And if you're feeling a certain way that you don't want to, that a radical change in physiology will absolutely change how you feel. We can do that with energy, we can do that with lots of different things. So 3 things that manage your state. Number 1, physiology. Number 2, focus/belief. Whatever you focus on, you get. Where focus goes, energy flows. So if you focus on what you don't want, we talked about the people driving back from California who hit the telephone poles because they focused on what they don't want. You got to focus on what you do want. The plane going from Chicago all the way to Hawaii. It's off course all the time, but they know exactly where they want to go, and so they make it. Focus on what you do want, what you don't want. And then beliefs about what's happening. I told you the story about Barbra Streisand coming on stage versus Bruce Springsteen coming on stage, and how they had the exact same physical response, but that for one of them, it felt like a nervous breakdown, and for the other one, it felt like their body was making it so that they were physically ready. You can have the same experience as somebody else, and the belief that you have about that experience decides how you feel about it. And we took that a step further and said, no event in your life has any meaning except for the meaning that you give it. And you know, we told lots of different stories about how people change the meanings of what is happening to them in their life, and it dramatically impacts that particular event. So the biggest story that we talked about was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and how the people in the Holocaust that made a decision that they were going to survive and had a reason to do that, they were changing the meaning of that event, and it changed the outcome for them. So 3 things that decide state management: physical body, your physical approach to everything, how you maintain your physiology. Second thing, focus/belief, whatever you're focusing on, and the meaning that you give to any particular event. And no event has any meaning except the meaning you give it. So you can give it a positive meaning or you can give it a negative meaning. And then the third thing that decides your state is language, the language that you use with stuff. Focus/belief, physiology, and language. So, you know, are you breaking down or are you breaking through? When you say things like something is horrific and terrifying, and those types of, you know, language matters. And I know a lot of people these days are saying language doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what this person says. It's what they really mean. No, that's ridiculous. It does, in fact, matter what they say. Language means everything. Language is part of what decides the meaning that you give things, because that language is a label. And the language that you use on a daily basis, the things that you say on a daily basis about yourself, about others, about your kids, that becomes how they identify themselves. There's a lot of adults that end up in, counseling, and they've got certain things embedded into their head. And what it was a joke that a parent used to say. I mean, somebody used to say, "Oh, that person's a big eater," or "that person's not a good student," or whatever. That language, those labels, they translate into reality. Whatever we focus on, whatever we incant to ourselves on a regular basis is what our life becomes. We've been talking for over a month. If you go back and look at the videos, which, by the way, they're all up on YouTube now so that you can, you'll find that a great number of the things that we talk about really is about state management. And that what it talks about is your focus, your belief, and your language. Many of the stories, that's what they're designed to do, is to help you with state management. So when we use these phrases like everything happens for you and it serves a purpose. Things are happening for you, not to you. Life is happening for you, not to you. Everything happens for a reason and it serves you. There's never a lack of resources. There's only a lack of resourcefulness. These phrases that we say and we incant again and again and again, that is all what helps you with state management. Because when something comes up and it's not the response that was supposed to happen, and now all of a sudden you're in a reaction mode, if your brain goes, everything happens for a reason and it serves me, life's happening for me, not to me, and there's never a lack of resources, there's only a lack of resourcefulness, you will now manage your state and find a way through that problem. When you hear stories about, like, the Holocaust, or the couple that I told about that ended up together at the end of life instead of at the beginning of life, all of those things are designed so that when a day happens where things don't go the way that they're supposed to, you don't just stop. And instead, you keep going, and you keep going in a positive way. You manage your physical body. So instead of going, "Oh my God, it's over," you go, "You know what? Everything happens for a reason and it serves me, so we're going to move forward." You're going to manage your physical body. You're going to manage your focus. I'm not going to focus on what's wrong. I'm going to focus on where I'm going. And you manage your belief. Your belief is, this isn't the end, because we're going to figure out how to do this. And then you manage your language by saying things like, life happens for me, not to me. Another one that I love, everything works out in the end. If it hasn't worked out, it's not the end. And you know what? That's true with every day of your life. If you're up and you're breathing, then you're still in the game. You're still playing. And if you want, you could look at it as a game. Many people do. So you're still playing, then it's time to get up and move forward. So if you go back and look at 30 plus videos, you're going to see that much of it is specifically designed to help you manage that state. And that's what all of those different ideas and tools are for, is for that particular purpose. So, two things that we said at the very beginning. State management. If you got that, you've got everything. That decides the quality of your life. The ability to manage your state in tough times decides the quality of your life. You want a happy life, you want a fulfilled life, managing your state is everything. Number two, whoever you surround yourself with is who you become. Then we spent a lot of time on goal setting. We said that there was 4 things that you needed to do whenever you wanted to accomplish something. And anybody who's accomplished anything, these are the steps that they did. Number 1, they knew their outcome. Now, did they know their outcome and like, well, I want to kind of have this, I want more money? No, they knew specifically what they wanted, in great detail what they wanted, and they had a deadline on it. A goal is a dream with a deadline. So number 1, they knew their outcome. Number 2, they took massive and immediate action. Never leave the sight of a goal without doing something towards the achievement of that goal. And the people that accomplish great things, they go at it almost insatiably. They go at it almost as if it's possessed them. That's how driven they are. And really what it is that's how inspired they are. If you're not inspired, it's because you have impotent goals. If the goal doesn't wake you up early in the morning and get you excited, then there's something wrong. Then you need to write down it hasn't hit you at the level yet that it should. You shouldn't have to force yourself to be inspired by a goal. Looking at it, if you really believe that you can create that reality, you should want to get up every day and drive towards that reality, or your goal isn't exciting enough. Shoot for something bigger. And we always underestimate. We always underestimate ourselves. Humans can accomplish so many things. We talked about Roger Bannister and the 4-minute mile. We've talked about going to the moon. People used to be called a lunatic. We talked about all of these different stories about the things that mankind can accomplish and what we thought was possible, and now here it is a reality. So, number 1, know your outcome. Number 2, take massive action. Number 3, have sensory acuity. Are you getting closer to your goal or not? And if you're not getting closer to your goal, don't beat yourself up. It's learning. Thomas Edison, 10,000 experiments before he discovered the incandescent light bulb. Walt Disney, 302 banks before he found a bank that would do Disneyland. 302 banks. I still can't. I get Thomas Edison's because the different experiments. That one makes sense to me, but 302 banks. How somebody went to 302 banks before they finally found one, I get turned down by one bank and I'm upset. 302. Know your outcome, take massive action, have sensory acuity. Are you getting closer to your goal or not? And then change your approach. If you're not getting closer to your goal, do something different. Don't say, I failed, I learned. You discovered a way to not achieve your goal. Try something different. Change your approach. For how long? Until you achieve the result. How long would we give our average baby to try to learn how to walk before we would say, you know what, we're done trying to teach that kid how to walk? Every parent's going to say, no, I'm going to keep doing until this kid walks. Well, that's why most kids walk. And then how do you speed this up? Modeling. That's the 4th step. Find somebody who's accomplished what you want to accomplish and do what they do. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just do what they do. And there's almost always somebody out there that you can model. So then we talked about anchors a little bit. We're going to go back to that a little bit more. A lot of our conversations have been talking about the ideas that help you with state management. And then recently, we started talking about how to create lasting change. And we said that number 1, you've got to, so this would be part of goal setting, right? And also part of state management. So if a goal is to lose weight and keep it off forever, so there's some steps to creating lasting change. So we said, number 1, you've got to create leverage. And you create leverage by doing the following things. Number 1, you got to believe that what's going on must change, that I can change it, and that I must change it now. And we talked about going back. The way to really do this is to go back and to find a time when you've made a change that lasted forever, and go back to that moment and feel that feeling, because change happens in a heartbeat. And by the way, that's true, and it's also a great belief, which is what helps you manage your state. Because people will tell you, they'll use language, they'll say, oh, well, change takes time. Well, if you say that, now that becomes your belief that it's going to take a long time to change. It doesn't take a long time to change. Change happens in a heartbeat, but some people take a long time to get to the point where they're going to change. That's leverage. So 3 things go into leverage. Number 1, you got to believe that it must change, I can change it, and I must change it now. And the way to get leverage, what's it going to cost yourself in the future? That's what you look at. What happens if I don't change? What happens if I live my life like this the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? That's how you get leverage. Look out into the future and feel the pain. Second step to change. So this is kind of what we're on today after our nice little review. The second step to change is you got to interrupt your pattern. So whatever it is that you want to change, it's been a pattern of activity for you for typically a long time. Whatever that pattern is, You need to change it. You need to interrupt it. So let's say that you want to lose some weight. This is why a fast is such a good idea. A fast doesn't make it so that you lose weight any quicker. People get this idea of, well, if I go on some sort of juice fast, then I'll be able to lose the weight faster than if I just do it by changing my eating. There's no evidence of that. You'll drop way down, but then when you go back to normal eating or healthy eating, then your weight will come back up. So there's no evidence that the fast helps you lose weight quicker, but what it does is it interrupts your pattern and it resets what you're doing. That's the quality of a fast, is it gets you out of that conditioned pattern, that stimulus response. This is what I eat in the morning, this is what I eat in the afternoon, this is what I eat at night, this is what I do, these are the snacks that I have, this is when I eat. It gets you out of that pattern, so now you can install a new pattern. So whatever the problem is that you're going to change, whatever the challenge is, after you get leverage, then you've got to interrupt the pattern. Another way to interrupt the pattern is to do it physically. So if you're, the thing that you want to change is you bite your nails, or if you smoke. I mean, in NLP stuff, I mean, there's a lot of radical things that people would do in order to interrupt their patterns. I've seen people crumple up cigarettes and eat them as a way to interrupt their pattern, because what that's going to do is that changes their association to that particular thing. Now it becomes disgusting. Instead of something that they feel like they're addicted to, it becomes, have you ever drank a certain amount of alcohol so much in one night that you could never smell it ever again? Well, that's neuro-linguistic programming right there. So you can do that with anything. If there's a piece of food that you love and crave and you feel like you're addicted to, obviously get it out of the house and you can just. But the other thing that you can do is you've got a food that you hate. Everybody does. If you combine those two things, it may well interrupt your pattern. But you got to make sure that you have leverage first, okay? Don't just go interrupt the pattern, get the leverage. A lot of times, by the way, by getting the leverage, it also interrupts the pattern. Those two things many times happen at the same time. Physical body. Another way to interrupt the pattern is to physically change what you're doing. So if you find yourself in the middle of this, if you argue or if you get upset, immediately change your physical body. Stand up, go run around. Seriously, go actually physically run. The patterns that we have in our head are kind of like records. Everybody remembers the old vinyl. Vinyl is making a comeback, so everybody remembers that. We play the records. That's what happens. It's like we put a record on in our head and we hit play and then we play that record. You can't just put another record on top of an old record. You've got to take that record off. And you take it off by scratching the hell out of it. You rub the needle back and forth on it. So another thing that you can do, if your belief that you want to change is from an event in the past, another thing that you can do is you can imagine the event and you can play it back in your head and then you can scramble it. It's called a scrambling technique. You run it back and forth and make it black and white, make the figures go all weird, make it go backwards, make it go forwards, make them go big, make them go small, make their heads blow up, make their heads go small. Just imagine all of these things back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and interrupt the pattern doing that. And that will scratch that record and create the opportunity for the new record. So step number one is to get leverage. To create lasting change, number one. Step number one is to get leverage. How do we do that? I can change this. I have to change this, and I have to change this now. How do you do that? Look in the future. Step number two, once you do that, then you got to make sure that you interrupt your pattern. Use your physical body to interrupt that pattern. That's a great way to get things changed and to turn things around so that you can create space for the new pattern that you're going to put in. That's why the fasting is such a good idea. There's a reason so many religious people, when they want to go to another level, that they go and they fast and they don't talk and they sit and meditate in silence. Every religion does that. And monks and the monasteries and the Hindus and the Buddhists, they all do it. Everybody does it. Why do they do that? Well, it interrupts their pattern. They're not talking, they're not eating, and it creates the space to put in new patterns and to open up new areas of thought. So you can do that for other reasons. You can do that in order to create the space to instill a new pattern for whatever it is that you want to live in your life. So tomorrow we're going to go through the last stage to creating lasting change. We did a little review today. Thought it might not be a bad idea. Enjoy the beautiful day, everybody. We're going to get through this.